I wish we could turn to good news after this, but unfortunately, we have to turn to another horrible tragedy, and that is the aftermath of Hurricane Helene here in the United States. I believe about 204 people have been killed across the country because of the hurricane. Half in North Carolina. That is still early death toll here as people try to dig out. And we are very honored to be joined as we continue the show here by Evan Branan, who's a resident of Asheville, North Carolina, one of the hardest hit places, and also an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Evan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to have the opportunity to, shed some more light on this.
Absolutely. Well, walk us through what happened there in Asheville and what some of the immediate challenges are there in the aftermath. I know people saw y'all got hit pretty hard.
Yeah, so the immediate challenges we're facing, for people that don't know, Hurricane Helene made landfall as like a Category 4 hurricane, and it came all the way up to Asheville, North Carolina, southern Appalachia, and hit us as a tropical storm. There are now hundreds of thousands of people that are without food, water, any way out, and also cell service. There are also entire communities that have been washed away. In the mountains when it rains, it's not like somewhere flat, like if it rains 12 inches, like across like a mile span, the rain from the tops of the mountains goes down into the valleys where the poor communities are. So in some places, we saw the rivers rise 20 feet, fully engulfing homes, communities. I guess the immediate challenges, there are hundreds of thousands of people that are without water right now. Everyone in the general Western North Carolina area and Asheville are without water, and I guess just to kind of like put that into perspective, like what does that actually mean? It means that you need drinking water. You can't take showers. You can't wash dishes. You can't wash your clothes. You have to be able to flush your toilets, you have to find a creek and walk down to it and fill up a bucket of water, which is heavy. And a lot of elders in the community are having to do that. Luckily the community is banding together a lot right now. But that's really all that we have.
I mean, it's just horrific to see the devastation. Can you also explain what the situation was like in Asheville immediately prior to the flooding from Hurricane Helene? Because, were residents given any warning? Were residents prepared for this level of disaster?
Yeah, so great question. No, we weren't given a warning. We knew that, some of us had friends traveling up, and I'm not I'm not a meteorologist. I don't know weather like that. But I even had the sense, to tell people like, hey, actually don't come up here. Like it's going to be bad. But unfortunately, our local government and state government didn't give any of that. We knew it was going to be bad. We knew there was going to be an impact. But for instance, evacuation orders, there are like some very key impacted areas, like a neighborhood or a town called Chimney Rock, which is completely washed away. There are like before and after pictures that you can find of that town. It's completely gone, swept away by the river. There's also Swannanoa and Black Mountain, and other rural areas that, were completely washed away. But it's very predictable. We know that the weather is getting worse. We know that hurricanes are getting stronger. We know that climate change is happening and that these weather systems are getting more intense. So our government could prepare for this. They also could have sent out evacuation orders, which they're in the communities I mentioned, like Swannanoa and Black Mountain, and Chimney Rock. There were evacuation orders that were sent out because they were in a flood zone, but they were sent out as the flooding was happening. So it was much too late. In Swannanoa specifically, there is the North Fork Reservoir, which is, where it's a water treatment plant. And it has a dam on it. And it was supposedly going to burst, and the police of the area sent out an evacuation order. Like, it was like effective immediately. So, and I guess something else that I mentioned is we don't have cell service. And I guess just to explain that a little bit more, like, that means that right now I'm at our public library, trying to get Wi-Fi because it's one of the few places in the city where we can connect with the outside. You know, we're totally isolated. So yeah, you know, we can't get emergency messages, or we can't get, these messages that are sent out for evacuations. So they could have done that to begin with because they knew it was going to be bad. I guess one other thing I wanted to mention really quick, I kind of lost my train of thought, but Swannanoa, the dam was supposed to burst. It was supposed to fail. Instead, they had to make the decision to actually let out some of the floodwater, and that's what led to really devastating flooding. But as I said, you know, the community wasn't told beforehand. They were told as it was happening, and they couldn't leave. But yeah.
Well, Evan, you mentioned this before, too, that, you know, a number of the areas that were hit hard were already some of the most impoverished communities in the United States already. So talk about that if you could, the impact now that this massive flooding and damage has been added to the existing challenges people were facing living in poverty.
Yeah, it really means total devastation. I mean, people are really, their whole lives are changed forever because of this. You know, this is an extremely traumatic, extremely catastrophic situation. As I mentioned, you know, not only homes were floating down the river, but entire communities. There are entire communities that are gone, you know. Most everybody that I know is out of work. They don't know what they're going to do for work. We're really having to rely on donations from outside because our government said they ran out of money for FEMA, which is absolutely insane. I'm sure hopefully people have heard about that, you know, that FEMA supposedly ran out of money. And even then, you know, this happened last Thursday is when this impacted all of us. So it's been a week today. It took Biden an entire 4 days to declare what they call a major disaster, which means that we are eligible for FEMA disaster aid and relief from the federal government. He waited 4 days to do that. And then, you know, now they're saying FEMA's out of money. Congress knew that months ago and decided to sweep that under the rug and not fund FEMA. But, you know, just last week, Congress sent like another $8 billion to Israel, I think, you know, for the genocide that's happening. And I think that FEMA was shorted like $9 billion. Yeah.
That's just wild. That's just wild. I mean, it's crazy to just watch this happening with all these floods happening here after this hurricane and all this devastation. And then you've just got endless money for weapons in the Middle East. But, you know, I want to ask you, this week, when asked about North Carolina flood victims, our half awake, half asleep President Joe Biden stated, and I'm quoting him, "We've given everything that we have for disaster relief." So how do you respond to that? Do you feel the federal response has been adequate? And what more do you think needs to be done for those affected?
Yeah, so great. I'm really happy you mentioned that. That's really wild that Biden mentioned that. I saw that. A lot of people are seeing that here. And I have a couple things. First of all, you know, the government failed us on absolutely every level. You know, whether it's local, getting out the evacuation orders, we were failed there. Also, the state could be doing a lot more. And the federal government, you know, is nowhere to be seen. You know, occasionally you'll see like a FEMA helicopter fly over, but nobody sees them land. Nobody sees aid from them. Yeah. And something we have seen, though, that's really, really incredible. Uh, it's really, really great to see is the communities banding together. The main thing that people are doing right now is surviving. We're checking on, who has food, who has water, where is somewhere that we can charge our devices to let our family know we're okay when we can make it to an area that has cell service. Where can we get gas? And also, there are people that are volunteering doing welfare checks on people right now, regular, everyday people doing this. But right now, something incredible that we're seeing is people banding together, organizing their neighborhoods, very grassroots level. It's makes me very proud to be to live here in Western North Carolina. I'm very proud of my community. But on the other hand, it's really a drop in the bucket because, like I mentioned, this is entire communities being washed away, workplaces being destroyed, totally collapsed to the ground. Some just totally gone. People have lost their lives. I think Eugene mentioned as of right now, there's 204 people confirmed dead. The number is absolutely going to grow. I think there are 1,000 people totally unaccounted for right now. Like nobody can get in touch with them or knows where they're at. There's also 11,000 missing person cases right now of people that have just said, hey, I haven't heard from my loved ones. And pretty much all of us here have been one of those people on that list at a certain point due to the lack of cell service and preparedness from our government. So, yeah, the media right now, I think what is being shown is kind of being in the corporate media shown as like a feel-good story. But that is really infuriating because people need actual relief. We need the federal government to, provide clean water to all homes so people can survive. We need cell towers. We need, phone companies to like come in and bring like temporary cell towers so people can, go about their life. And not be so isolated here, and also talk to loved ones and plan how they can get out of here. People need money for damages. I mentioned that it was declared a major disaster. So that means that people can apply for FEMA aid, but people shouldn't have to apply. It should be granted automatically when something like this happens. And it should be insured to everybody. We shouldn't have to have a FEMA investigator come and see if we're worthy of whatever check they're going to give us to rebuild our lives. We also need transparency. I mentioned we're out of all of these things. 90,000 people are still out, like zero power, and there's also no timeline on when that's coming back. So we need transparency on that from our government. We also all of our water treatment facilities are down in Western North Carolina. People don't have water, and there's also no timeline for that. Also no timeline for when cell service is coming back. Also, the government needs to get the lights on, get us power again, fully, prioritize this issue right now. It's a catastrophe for people. There should be gas distribution, or mobilize buses from across the state or other states to come in and bring people out or bring them somewhere where they can get gas and get out of the area for now. Also, there are a lot of people without medications or oxygen tanks, people that are on oxygen. They need to open and stock the pharmacies and give it away for free for the victims. There are people I know in my neighborhood that have been a week without their medications because pharmacies are, just not open. And also, a bigger, just more general demand for our government is stop fossil fuel extraction. We know that everyone knows that climate change is happening, and everyone wants something done about it, except for for our government. The capitalist class of this country is extracting and does not care at all what happens to the people here or of the world.
Well, Evan, we really appreciate you going to some, I'm sure, difficult lengths to be able to connect with us here and share some of what's going on. Really appreciate you giving us some of your time here in the Freedom Side.
Thank you.